Welcome to our educational session on empowering people, inspiring innovation, effective leadership strategies, and building innovative organizations. Before we begin, I would like to just remind you a quick guidelines for this session. We would like to invite you to turn on your camera and microphone during the presentation. You can type your questions in the chat box, and in the end of our presentation, when Tiza and I will be done, we will invite you to turn on your camera and microphone, and we will have an immersive discussion. My name is Lesya Dymyd. I'm an innovation management expert and consultant. Tiza and I partner together to help leaders and organizations across different industries to deal with their innovation and change management challenges and to achieve their goals. So what we're going to talk about on today's educational session, we are going to look at what is an innovative organization. Why organizations fail to innovate. We're going to briefly touch base this big topic. We're going to look at what is innovative leadership and how leaders can help organizations to build their innovative capabilities. We also will take a look at how leaders impact innovation and what are some of the constructive leadership strategies that organizations and leaders can use for effective management of innovation and change management. So without further ado, let's start from defining innovation leaders and actually briefly understanding what is innovation. You see well-established organizations. Some of them are very known. What do you think? What do they have all in common? Maybe you can type in the chat box your answers.
Lesya, I think when I looked, failed to innovate, that was Tabia said. Jessica said they failed to innovate to keep up with the changing needs.
Correct.
Miss opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They are no more, that's what Michael says.
Exactly. So you're absolutely right. So at some point, these were really huge organizations, and at some point of their history, their development, they failed to innovate, they become irrelevant, and they lost their market. And some of them really got disrupted by the competition. So take the example of Xerox. Xerox was a company, and they did not really understood that digitalization was coming. They're still hoping that people will buy the machines and print, but this was not happening. Another example is a Blockbuster. So they started from a video renting memberships. They also had an opportunity to buy Netflix at some point of time, but they decided not to do that. They decided to stay focused on their traditional business, which was in renting videos. And after some time, of course, they got disrupted. Yahoo, another technological company, also very interesting case of a company that failed to innovate. At some point, they were a very successful technology company. In 1998, they refused to buy Google for $1 million. And in 2008, Microsoft came up with a proposal to buy Yahoo for $40 billion, and they decided not to sell the company. So basically, after a series of missed opportunities, they become really irrelevant and eventually miss the market. So now let's define what is innovation. In a very brief and general terms, innovation is a new product or a new service. Innovation is an introduction of new goods and new methods of production, the opening of new markets, acquisition of new sources of supply, and carrying out of a new organization in any industry. As you may know, innovation can be of different types depending on which type of analysis we are carrying on. Is it organizational, is it longitudinal studies, and so on. They could be disruptive innovations, radical, incremental, discontinuous. What is interesting when we look at the industry studies, and specifically the report from the BCG in 2023 says that innovation is a top priority. Despite the global economic uncertainty and downturn, 80% of companies rank innovation as their top 3 goals. Nearly 90% of companies plan to increase their innovation spending. There is another interesting study from McKinsey, but also there are some studies from BCG that confirm these findings. 80 to 90% of executives tell that innovation is their top priority, but only 6% are satisfied with their performance. That number has not changed for them almost a decade. So we're kind of facing with two sides. On one side, we have the companies that want to invest in innovation, and they do perform investments and allocate resources. On the other hand, they see low return of investments, so low ROI. The question arises, how can an organization increase the ROI from the innovation activities? And we will try to slightly answer this question on today's session. Why organizations fail to innovate? Again, this is a huge topic in the management and behavioral science. But if we try to group the reasons, we can create at least 3 buckets of reasons why they fail to innovate. So the first one has to deal with the vision. Organizations, they do not see it coming. They have a lack of exploration activities. They don't understand what is happening around the markets and trends, industry shifts. Sometimes they cannot really capture those changes, and they do not understand the new emerging customer needs and wants. Sometimes they can understand, but they really don't do anything about that to respond to the change. Kodak is a good example of seeing the opportunities, not seeing the threats coming. So they used to be an innovative company. They invented the first digital camera back in 1975, but they decided not to push this idea further and to protect their core business because they were afraid that this will penetrate their core business and put it in danger. As a result, they were Sony who came up with digital cameras, and they disrupted the market. The second big reason, a bucket of big reasons, is data analytics. So organizations, they see the trend, but they don't believe it. So they focus on current business. They don't take the trend too seriously. And they also have the weak commitment to innovate. So basically, they allocate some resources to innovation. They try to do some experimentation, maybe even develop some prototypes or first product, but never really invested there. A good example is Nokia. Is another failure of corporate innovation. They started as a paper factory and eventually got into the telecom and hardware industry. They had their first touch screen, they had their first camera, and also their first web browser. But they decided not to continue and not to launch this product and focus on the core business. And surprisingly, in 2007, when Steve Jobs came up with the iPhone, the CEO of Nokia said, iPhone is an interesting thing. It's a validation of what we have been doing in our labs, have developed in their labs, but never pushed it to the market. And Apple came up with an idea, with a product, and disrupted. After some time, they disrupted the industry. And finally, the execution problem. So companies, they see it, they believe it, but cannot act upon that. Lack of systems, lack of processes and metric for effective management of innovation and product market launch. I believe this is one of the most complicated approach because it requires different aspects as systems, as processes for effective management of innovation. A good example to illustrate this lack of execution is the GE. So in 2011, GE wanted to make a software company, and they have launched the GE Digital. Unfortunately, the new unit has been treated more as a traditional business unit. So they use the KPI that they used in the core business. They didn't have any profit and loss relevant to the innovation and new activity, treated as a normal business. And of course, they couldn't compete with the core business, and they were set as unprofitable. So again, as mentioned, this is probably one of the most complicated reasons why organizations fail to innovate, because they understand there is a need to innovate, they understand and have the data that prove it, but the lack of leadership, the lack of systems and processes and culture that can help make the change and can help support the innovation. What is leadership in the context of innovation? So leadership is a process where individuals influence a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. In very simple terms, we can say that leadership is when we have a group of people or a leader who is influencing, who has a vision and who can influence an individual or a group of individuals to achieve their goals and to move forward in a committed way to achievement of these goals. Different types of leadership, and I decided to choose 3 of those. So we have a transformational leaderships. So these are the leaders that motivate with this sense of purpose and vision. So it's more about the inspiration. How do we inspire others to achieve the goals and achieve the vision? There is also the transactional leadership. So it's based on the rewards and punishments. This is a command and control type of motivation where the managers or the leaders of the company try to command and in order to achieve the goals. And another interesting type of leadership is a servant leadership, which is now more and more often you can meet this type of leadership in leading organizations. So base their motivation through the serving of others. So basically leaders and managers are supporting their teams in order to achieve what the team needs to achieve. With that regard, we can say that innovation leadership is a combination of processes and practices that supports innovation-based, innovation-related activities of individuals and influence positively on innovation capacity of organization. So what is the role of leaders in that context? The role of leaders is, of course, to set the clear vision, being fully committed to innovation, allocate resources, not only support the development of prototypes or very first versions of products, but really being the champion of innovation and support the innovation function in a company. And also they need to create the culture that supports innovation and experimentation. It also includes the risk-taking and avoiding criticism, because that's one of the biggest challenges in the organizations. So what do we have as a result? On one hand, leaders want innovation, but they don't often create conditions for its successful execution. It results in absence of creativity, so people or teams will most likely to stick with organization that has with the processes and the way the things were done often. They have low outcomes, so lack of strategy, lack of processes to accelerate productization at scale, and fear of negative impact. As I mentioned earlier, literature also explained that there is a fear of impact on one's career. So if there is a risk and criticism, sometimes managers and individual contributors can have a fear of negative impact from their decision making and how it can impact on their career and the trajectory of their career. And also low executive commitment to innovation. So slow decision making, avoidance of taking risks, and lack of resources. Innovative organizations need a specific type of leadership that supports innovation and create the systems, create the processes to support innovation in a company. And the reason is that traditional leaders can work well when the solution is a problem is known and straightforward. It's more like when we operate in the exploitation environment, we know how to solve the problem and we know what could be the solution. The problem arises when we need to search for the truly original response, like when we work really with a creative solution, and no one can decide in advance where the response should be. The role of a leader of innovation is to create a community willing to be able to innovate. Harvard professor Hill, she has been working on a study that is called collective genius, and she says that innovation is not a solo genius, it's a collective genius. So you cannot really innovate alone, right? Think of a very complex project, or as, for example, creating a film. You have a director, you have the idea, but you also need the team, you need the crew to create the film, because you also need the different skill set, different competences, and different processes to make this product or process ready to the market. Of innovation leader is to create the community of people that want and can innovate over time. So they need to create a sense of community. So what is the purpose? Why we exist here? People need to have the shared values. What we agree is important for us and for our organization. And finally, they need to agree on what is the rules of engagement, how we interact with one another, and think about the problems. These 3 aspects will create a sense of community, help organizations to innovate over time. And the role of a leader is to create this sense of community and enable the innovation inside organizations through creative abrasion, creative resolution, and agility. So creative abrasion means the organization needs to be able to generate ideas through discourse and negotiations. Creative resolutions mean that the companies and teams need to be able to make integrative decisions and be open to listen to others' ideas and conflicting ideas, and also come up with a mutual agreement. Because as you know, sometimes when we work on innovation, we can have a conflicting and opposite ideas. So we need to be open to listen to others and be really inclusive. And finally, the creative agility. Which is the ability to test and experiment through quick iterations, reflection, and adjustment. There is no place for criticism, but there is a place for experimentation and adjustment. We really need to quickly adjust and test the ideas and make the improvements when it's necessary. Innovation is always deals with leadership and change management. I would like to invite Tiza, who will tell you about the leadership and culture. So Tiza, back to you now.
Thank you, Lesya. Thank you for a very comprehensive, although quick introduction to innovation. And I think I am going to talk a little bit about organization culture. And next slide, please. I have a question for you. The culture of an organization is shaped by the action of its leaders. What is your reaction to this statement? As a leader, what type of culture would you like to foster? Please put your ideas on chat and we can start a little bit of a conversation before I go into a discussion of constructive cultures. Safe space, collaboration, open-mindedness. You want to do it for me, Lesya?
Yeah, absolutely. So open, collaborative, creative environment and cultures. Supportive, achievement-focused culture.
Those are great definitions at the start of a conversation that in the next slide, I'll start talking about what constructive cultures mean. I am going to suggest that constructive cultures create the most conducive climate for innovation. And what do I mean when I say constructive cultures? These are cultures that have challenging goals that are understood by all. Members are encouraged to be creative and encourage personal growth. Reinforcement is done primarily by reward and not punishment, because in innovative culture, you're going to make mistakes, and this needs to be rewarded as a path to future innovation. Teamwork is encouraged and rewarded. We heard about genius being us. And appraisal of performance is development and fair. So that seems to be kind of a place that the members are open and free to be their best, kind of a place where you will like to bring your new ideas. That I'm going to be talking about is based on my interaction and long-term associated with Human Synergistics International, which is a leader in culture development and leadership development that I have used both in my corporate career as well as with my consulting career. And one of the things that we look is that how are cultures created? And strong research has shown that the impact that leaders have on the behavior of its members is a key transformation to shape an organization. So when we look about leadership impact, we're talking about what are the things that individuals do to create a culture, a constructive culture. And managers should be ready to transform and shape the influence in the organization environment. And the effectiveness of leaders depends on the direction and strategies used to achieve that impact. And I'm going to show with you a model that has been the core of the leadership impact research into from Human Synergistics, that every manager has an ideal impact. And is interesting because extensive research all over the world has shown that most leaders want to have a constructive impact in their organizations. And of course, this impact is created by the strategies that they develop. Those strategies have a significant impact on others. And of course, these strategies lead to leadership effectiveness, which is actually creating behaviors that support what we've been talking about, the ability to move forward, to be creative and innovative in the workforce. One of the things that is key in creating the time we have, and we definitely want to leave some time for discussion, is that I would like to talk about 5 key strategies that have impact on corporate culture. And again, based on the leadership impact tool that is a hallmark of human synergistics. So those strategies are going to be actions that leaders can take to support the development of others. And one of the things that we talk about, its strategies can be both prescriptive. And what we say by prescriptive strategies is when our strategies that encourage a certain type of behavior. And also there is one that is restrictive, which means you diminish that behavior. In the strategies that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to address only the constructive ways of presenting those strategies to move behavior to the desired outcomes. And this is actually what leaders do. And as a result of doing this, their teams, their individual behaviors are moved to more constructive ways of working, of interacting, of creating goals. So let us go. The first one is envisioning. And this is defined as a desired state of future affairs and sharing this vision with others. And the 3 key ways in a prescriptive way that leaders can do that is to communicate a clear vision of how things should be. By creating a vision, they are really moving the behavior to achievement, moving the behavior to self-development, and creating this positive outcome in an organization. Also, sharing with others your philosophy of management. I have always found very interesting when I'm doing debrief of this too with leaders, that one of the restrictive comments is tell people what you don't want to do. When you say that to an individual, you leave them with very little. But when you share them your philosophy of management and help them see how what they are doing is going to impact this process, you have a much more constructive approach and engagement towards innovation. And also having a sense of direction for the organization and its members. The leader must create the sense of direction, which is perhaps one of the most important functions, is to show a possible future for the people in the organization. And these are some, I would say, simple, but sometimes challenging ways for a leader to remember to behave on a consistent way to create constructive cultures. The next strategy is creating a setting. And that is facilitating the work performance, growth, and development of all the people around you. And again, 3 ways that a leader can start acting to create this impact on the people in their organization is to give enriching projects that better prepare team members for advancement. I always believe that you are the most effective leader when you're always preparing your people for growth and sometimes even preparing them to replace you. The leader that's afraid of teaching employees reduces innovation and reduces satisfaction in the workplace. Empowering people, giving them the right information, the autonomy, and the resources to achieve the desired outcomes. And this will create a culture that allows people to grow and develop within the organization. Because I think part of what we want is to create a cadre of well-trained, well-committed individuals that can grow with the organization rather than train people to go somewhere else. I remember many years ago, we say we don't want to create people for the competition. But if you don't create the setting of people feeling part of the organization, that could be a situation. The next one is going to be, stimulating thinking. I really love the idea of lateral thinking because it's the way to be curious and look at possibilities outside of your immediate light. And very technical people have the tendency to be focused in one thing. So it could be a challenge to be a lateral thinking and be curious and to open opportunities. So I think stimulating thinking become a real strong conductor of innovation incorporation, because encouraging people to challenge assumptions and look for different options, stimulating creativity in the pursuit of organization goals, inspiring others to translate problems into opportunities. And I think this is so interesting, especially in innovation that causes change. We need to really help people see that there is confusion, but the confusion is good, because within that confusion, that's where you see opportunities and you can create new solutions. The next one that I would like to share with you is mentoring, which is the active approach to develop others and provide direction and create an environment that is safe for learning. Again, I remember one is an old-fashioned story, is that somebody in a major corporation lost $1 million and came to the CEO and said, I made a mistake and I'm going to give my resignation. And the CEO looked at him and said, I just spent $1 million on you. Go ahead and do differently and be successful. So it was just a way of saying failure is expected if you don't quit. And I think that's something that has been something that I've learned recently that I want to share with you. Quitters never win and winners never quit. And I think that is something very important, part of Napoleon Hill book, that we can think in looking at innovation, because we need to stay focused. And the mentoring is going to help people to learn the ropes and understand the system, is going to carefully explain to people why and how the things are done in that company, and is going to be a coaching process by which people are helped in taking actions and risks consistent with the organizational norms. So again, those are the things that as a leader to create an organizational culture, you can start thinking of those strategies that are going to support a constructive culture. Influencing is the reciprocal control of strategies of a leader. And that sometimes is challenging, because how do you gain the cooperation of others is by treating people with respect and dignity and helping them see their value, sometimes at a different organization structure level. So the leader who gained the cooperation by others by treating people well starts moving into teamwork and collaboration. Influencing others by personally being open to their influence. You can learn a lot from people, and sometimes they see innovation from a different light that you have not seen. So the influencing is that openness to this approach, and using participative methods to ensure that decisions are understood and accepted. And again, simple in a paper, but they are very much part of this whole process of organizational culture and innovation. One of the things that we have done, Lesya and I, is that we have created this plan of doing one seminar per month. It's just a short seminar that hopefully will give you some useful information and have a good discussion. And we have already set up our next one, who is going to be October 29. And the topic of this one is going to be effective communication in times of change. what the leader can do, because we know that innovation is going to create change. So you better be prepared for the constructive culture, but also prepare people into this process of change.
Tiza, if I may add also on the importance of effective communication in terms of change and in terms of innovation. What we know from the literature and from practice that very often people, other managers or directors of the units, they come up with ideas or innovations. But those ideas and innovations are very often lost. And one of the reasons is because of the communication. So we need to understand how do we need to effectively communicate about our ideas, about our suggestions, and how to push these ideas forward and actually towards the execution of these ideas. So I really believe it's an important topic.
You heard Lesya talk about the model for change I have created, the base model for change, and BASC stands for belief, awareness, support, and execution. And we are going to offer a masterclass program probably starting in November of 2024 that I am calling the Playbook for Change, Implementing Innovation in Organizations with a Base Model for Change. And that is going to be a practical program, and expect to hear from us with a lot more information for that. But at least we wanted to give you a look for the future and see our commitment to help organizations and individuals to innovate and move forward in this world of business.
If you'd like to sign up for our newsletter, you can scan this QR code and we will get your email to find information about all these programs, about news from us. So please sign up for the newsletter so you can get information on time. That's it for today. So thank you for your attention.